The cold water hit the woman's head without warning. It poured from a half-empty plastic bottle, soaking the brim of her faded baseball cap, streaming down her cheeks and neck, drenching the front of her plain gray t-shirt. The water splashed onto the beige tile floor of the West Ridge Police Department's main lobby, darkening the old grout and leaving jagged wet streaks. The air inside the precinct was stale, carrying the scent of burnt coffee, damp paper, and a weak citrus disinfectant that barely masked the decades of poor upkeep. The woman stood motionless, her spine rigid, her body shivering not just from the cold but from the sheer shock of the act. Her lips parted, a sharp breath caught between disbelief and rising anger. But she didn't cry out. She didn't scream. Droplets continued to fall from her chin and her damp hair, gathering around her sneakers in a growing puddle. "I told you to get out," the voice barked from behind the front desk. Officer Mark Brenner, a heavy-set white man in his 40s with ruddy cheeks and thinning hair, was glaring at her with unconcealed contempt. The empty bottle he had just used as his weapon dangled from his fingers. "This is a police station, not a drop-in center for your kind," he snarled. "Leave before I make you leave." The few civilians sitting on the hard plastic chairs lining the lobby wall had fallen silent. One elderly man's eyes widened. A young woman clutched her purse closer to her chest. Even the rookie officer stationed near the supply room door froze, his face flushed with discomfort. The drenched woman lifted her head slowly. Her features, partially hidden under the cap moments before, came into clearer view. Sharp eyes, composed despite the humiliation, now staring with icy clarity straight at Brenner. Her voice was steady and low, but carried easily through the stunned lobby. "My kind," she repeated, the words crisp. "What exactly does that mean, officer?" A week earlier, Kendra Holloway had taken the oath of office as the new chief of police for the city of Sterling. At 41, she brought not only 2 decades of experience including a transformative tenure in a troubled East Coast department but also a reputation for reform, integrity, and fearlessness. A black woman in a profession still heavily dominated by white men, she was accustomed to scrutiny. She was also accustomed to making people uncomfortable when she exposed what others preferred to ignore. Sterling was a city of contrasts, affluent suburbs shadowed by impoverished inner-city blocks. It had weathered years of escalating tensions between law enforcement and minority communities. The city council, after mounting public pressure, appointed Holloway to spearhead sweeping reform. But Holloway knew that real change wouldn't come from press conferences and departmental memos. It would require more than strategic plans and carefully crafted talking points. She had to see, unfiltered, the true nature of the culture she now led. So she came up with a plan. She would visit her precincts in disguise, anonymously, unannounced. No formalities. No badges. Just one black woman in street clothes. That's how she ended up in the Westridge station lobby, wearing scuffed jeans, an old gray t-shirt, and a weathered cap, posing as Michelle Adams, a concerned citizen seeking help with a neighbor dispute. Westridge had a troubling file. Over the past 2 years, it had accumulated the highest number of citizen complaints, many dismissed as unsubstantiated. But one name kept appearing: Officer Mark Brenner. He was never formally reprimanded, but Holloway noted the patterns: dismissive conduct, disrespect, racial profiling, especially toward women of color. So she chose Westridge as her first stop. Holloway had crafted her story. Michelle Adams, a single woman living in a nearby apartment complex, wanted to know the steps required to file a temporary restraining order against an aggressive neighbor. It was a plausible, not overly dramatic request, an everyday issue that any patrol officer should be trained to handle calmly and helpfully. But the moment she walked into the lobby, she saw Brenner behind the desk, hunched over his phone, oblivious. She waited a full minute before clearing her throat. When that didn't work, she gently called, "Excuse me, officer?" Brenner looked up slowly, his expression souring the moment he saw her. "What?" he snapped. She explained her situation. He sighed loudly, as if she were wasting his time. "Restraining orders? Courthouse. Not here." "Yes, but I was told a police report helps." "You people," he cut in, his voice rising, "always want something. Music too loud? Someone looks at you funny? Go home and deal with it yourself. We've got real crimes to handle." The word "you" hung in the air like smoke. Holloway knew what he meant, but she stayed composed. "I'd like to file a report," she insisted calmly. "And I'll need your name and badge number." It was the final spark. Brenner's face twisted with rage. He stood, knocked over his chair in the process, slammed his palm against the counter, and bellowed, "Get out before I have you dragged out." And then the bottle. The freezing water. The soaked silence. Holloway, now dripping, peeled off her cap. Her thick black hair tumbled loose from the bun beneath. Her full face, unmistakable now, was revealed. She met Brenner's stunned gaze. "Officer Mark Brenner, badge number 719, she said, her voice resonant and firm. "You have just assaulted the chief of police." The lobby gasped as one. What?" he stammered, face draining of color. She stepped forward, eyes locked on him. "I came here to see how my officers treat the people they're sworn to protect. And you've just shown me." Brenner's lip trembled. "I didn't know, I didn't recognize." "You shouldn't have to recognize someone to treat them with basic dignity." He collapsed to his knees. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean." But Holloway turned to the young officer nearby. "Get Lieutenant Harmon." "Now." Harmon arrived within minutes, stunned. She issued orders quickly and clearly. "Officer Brenner is suspended effective immediately. Badge, weapon, and radio confiscated. Take him to a secure room. He is not to speak to anyone until Internal Affairs arrives." Brenner was led away, dazed. An hour later, the investigation began. Security footage confirmed every moment. Witnesses gave statements, each echoing the same disbelief and horror at Brenner's conduct. Holloway's own statement was thorough, detached, professional. Internal Affairs pulled Brenner's record. Years of complaints. No disciplinary action. The pattern was clear. The disciplinary board convened within 72 hours. They did not terminate Brenner immediately. Instead, they issued a 12-month suspension without pay. But the real test lay in what followed. He was enrolled in the department's newly launched Second Chance program, a rigorous 2-year regimen designed to rehabilitate deeply problematic officers. It demanded psychological counseling, anti-bias training, de-escalation workshops, and over 200 hours of community service in neighborhoods historically mistreated by law enforcement. At the end of the program, if an independent panel found no genuine improvement, Brenner would be dismissed permanently. Chief Holloway made the incident public not by naming names, but by laying out her expectations. Respect, accountability, equity. From that moment forward, every officer knew the culture was changing. Some praised her. Others grumbled behind closed doors. But she had sent a message that could not be misunderstood. As for Brenner, his journey had just begun. Whether he would change or fail remained to be seen. But Chief Holloway had made one thing clear: silence and complicity would no longer be tolerated. Justice had a new voice. And it was watching.